What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and today we are talking about the This Week in Destiny because there's a lot of Sandbox changes. Quick plug, join my Discord. We've been talking about all the changes in there, and another plug, I will go down to the bottom here. My friend TJ, as he usually does, has set up a Game to Give donation. It will be in the link of this video. It's a good cause. So yeah, if you're interested in getting some of these emblems, then check that out in the description. But anyways, let's get on to the video because there's a lot to talk about. I have read this all before making this video, and I'm just gonna focus on the things that I want to talk about. So one is Sealed Ahamkara Grasps. They're getting a buff. Many of you may not even know what they do, but I will read it to you right here. So the exotic right now is called Nightmare Fuel. Dealing melee damage reloads your current equipped weapon. Charged melee final blows reload all weapons. So basically, it's good for reloading your weapons. But now, powered melee and finisher final blows grant melee fuel, increasing handling and AE. While active, freshly drawn weapons deal additional damage and grant nightmare fuel on final blows. Gaining nightmare fuel reloads all holstered weapons. So with the introduction of Envious Arsenal and stuff, you're often swapping. So this could become a meta in some DPS swap rotations. Again, we don't totally know everything about how you gain Nightmare Fuel, what the damage bonus is going to be. But anytime you can get free weapon damage, like we saw Sanguine Alchemy pretty much become meta this season because of that extra like 10% it gives to a marked target. So yeah, if you have to build up this Nightmare Fuel, it may not be good on more sustained damage rotations if there's no enemies to kill, but you could stack it up before a quick damage rotation, like on the first boss of Warlord's Ruin, for instance. And even on the second boss, there's lots of enemies to kill during damage. So yeah, this one could be a sleeper pick. Gwiz and Vest, we have some really nice changes. I really like this. Now also emits a cloud of weakening smoke when you exit invisibility while nearby an enemy. So when you come out of Invis, this says works in both neutral and while in super. So basically you come out of Invis and you will smoke everything, which kind of disorients it and it weakens it. So this could be very strong. And then now progresses its super returns on super hits as well as kills. So you don't just need kills. Now you can get it back on super hits. So could be decent. Nothing too crazy though. Renewal Grasps getting the... they're doubling the rate of which you gain frost armor when you stand in your enhanced dusk field, so that's nice. Foe Tracer, the duration is getting extended from 10 to 15 seconds, so that's really good. Radiant Dance Machines, this was one of the ones we were talking about in the Discord. What I'm excited for, you could pair this on Prismatic with something like Ascension, and Ascension is getting a buff where it will work with Threaded Spectre. So realistically, you may be able to put this on and just do Ascensions to jolt everything, make a bunch of Threaded Spectres, and just keep doing this over and over. So that's just one idea I've kind of spitballed in my head. They are making it a little more difficult. Multi-kills with primary ammo refunds dodge energy. So you're going to still have to get multi-kills with a primary, but there definitely could be some builds where, yeah, you can go pretty crazy with that depending on the content. If it's like lower tier red bars and lots of them, that could be really fun. Spirit of Galanor is getting a nerf because of the roaming super changes that we got. So it's going down from 50% to 30%. This is more to target the class item one. So it's just the spirit. I actually have that with, what the heck's it called? Gear Falcon, Spirit of Gear Falcon. And Galanor, and yeah, you could get your super crazy fast, but either way, that's still a great combo. Destabilizing rounds are getting a buff as well, which we'll get to. So yeah, that's still going to be a good pick, but it is getting a bit of a nerf. Spirit of Foe Tracer is getting the Foe Tracer change. Sight and Ramparts, I'll just let you kind of read this. Nothing really moves the needle to me. Eternal Warrior, this is really cool. So back in the day on one of the subclass nodes on Arc, you could extend the duration of your super by getting hits. So this says Final Blows. Maybe it was Final Blows. I just know it was a menace in Crucible with One-Eyed Mask back then. I abused the hell out of it with Ace of Spades. But anyways, it's getting that change in addition to the other things it does. And with the quicker roaming super changes that we got, you're actually going to be able to get your super very, very often. And Arc Titan is getting a new aspect. So again, this could actually be pretty decent. Ursa Furiosa, blocking damage with Unbreakable, now returns grenade energy instead of super energy. This is actually really good. You can pretty much be a tank for your team. So again, depending on the situation, you could really build into like the tank fantasy as a Titan. Kepri's Horn is getting a buff. It's going to send out 3 solar waves instead of just 1, and it doesn't go there and back. The tracking is enhanced. Combatants damaged by these waves are now enveloped in a sunspot. Players are enveloped if they are defeated. Now requires a solar super to be equipped to create the flames from the barricade. And I know I saw it somewhere, but it makes like an X on the Spirit version. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, Spirit of the Horn was inherited on Thruster. Spirit of the Horn now emits 4 waves in an X pattern. So that's kind of cool. Spirit of the Bear gets the Ursa Furiosa stuff. This one's huge. I made a build a while ago calling Insurmountable Skullfort the best solo flawless dungeon build because you can just keep spamming Thunderclaps. But its one huge downside was if you didn't get a kill with your melee, your whole engine was stopped because that whole build is based around chaining your melees. Well, now it grants arc melee abilities when hitting targets with any melee attack. So amounts granted varies based on the melee used. So powered melees, non-glaive, unpowered melees while knockout is active, and then unpowered melees including glaives. So you could pair this with a glaive, especially a pugilist glaive, which, what's that new glaive that we got this season called? Rake Angle. It can roll with Pugilist. So yeah, anyways, Insurmountable Skullfort, that's really nice quality of life change. It's just going to help it. Stormdancer's Brace, I will make a video on Stormdancer's Brace. It did need this change and it's very good. So basically they tuned back how much you get. So you can't get 50% back anymore. It's down to 30%. But with the roaming super changes, this will barely affect it. I was able to literally chain supers in Onslaught this season with my Stormdancer's Brace build on Prismatic. And it's only going to get better next season because they've doubled the damage benefit per stack. So it's up to 20% instead of 10. So this would top out at 10 stacks for 100% more damage. They didn't say if it's still going to go up to 10 stacks, so that would be 200% more damage, or if it's just going to go 5 stacks, but you get 20%, but it still taps out at 100. Either way, easier quality of life. I was already going to work on a video kind of comparing Stormdancers to Crown Tempest, but I've been waiting for basically this TWID before I made that, because obviously I figured they were going to touch some of this stuff, and they did. So that's a really nice change. Stormdancers is finally on the menu for endgame content. It's going to be really good. This one is probably what I'm the most excited about for the whole TWID. Even though there's glaive changes, this one speaks more to me. So part of the charm of Geomag stabilizers was lost when sprinting to get super is removed due to PvP issues. Basically, you could get your super way too fast in Trials of Osiris, and people are abusing that. With the introduction of Bolt Charge to the Arc Kit, there was an opportunity to bring this experience back without breaking PvP. Added a new perk, sprinting while near max Bolt Charge will top it off. Starts at 6 stacks of Bolt Charge. So we don't know all the ways really to get Bolt Charge, but I'm pretty sure there's a fragment coming. Re-enabled VFX where boots spark while sprinting near max Bolt Charge. That's cool. This is crazy. Increased super energy gained from Ionic Traces to 7% from 2%. I did some solo GMs with Geomags, and especially in teams when other people are making you orbs, you can damn near chain your Chaos Reach. Chaos Reach is getting a buff. I can't remember if it's 15% or 20%, but it is getting a buff in episode Heresy. And Ionic Traces are made all the frickin' time. So to go to 7% super, I don't even understand this. Like, when you think of 100%, basically what's 15? So like 16 Ionic Traces would get you to 100%. And that's not including, right? Because, yeah, that's 102%. 16 Ionic Traces isn't that hard to make, in all honesty. You can throw a jolting grenade and then get some jolting feedback kills with like Vantage Point or something. And anyways, you're just going to be making Ionic Traces like crazy, get huge super returns from that. and then be able to top it off as well. So Geomegs are going to be absolutely cooking, and this is before we've even seen any artifact mods, which with all the changes to Arc, I'm sure there's going to be some Arc-focused stuff. Secant Filaments, basically they said since you have intrinsic stunning capabilities, you no longer really need what it provides, which is Overload from an Empowering Rift. So now it gives class ability energy per kill while Devour is active. So that's nice. You're going to be able to make more rifts. Speaker Sight, basically it was healing even if you were full health. Now you have to be damaged to get healed. So a bit of a nerf to Speaker Sight, but still very, very good. Verity's Brow is getting the Worm God's Caress treatment. So basically, instead of your stacks just going away, they now decay is the big thing there. And then bonus grenade recharge per tier. So yeah, you get quicker recharge at higher tiers. So if you can keep that up, you're just going to be able to get more grenades more often, and they deal more damage. And then Spirit of Verity, it basically got a nerfed down version of that because it's just a spirit. Aim assist, not really going to talk about that. This is big. Scout rifles, that's crazy, man. 30% versus majors, 15%. A lot of people were already using Hung Jury with kinetic tremors in endgame content, and it was faring pretty well. I used, Polaris Lance with my Don Chorus build to solo GM Behemoth, and I thought it felt fine. So a 15% versus minors and 30% versus majors is going to be really, really big. I'm not sure if that will scale with your ignition damage on Polaris Lance or Skyburner's Oath, but it's something to keep in mind. It may, but either way, those are really big buffs for scout rifles, which, I mean, really legendary primaries in general don't feel that great compared to like exotic primaries, but I didn't think scouts were feeling too bad this season with anti-barrier scout, so that's a really big buff. Auto rifles, 10% versus minors and majors. Shout out Sweet Business, that's going to be cooking. Quicksilver Storm also is getting a bit of a reversion to its nerf, so that's going to be nice. Kvostov is already a monster, so that's going to be really good. Necrochasm's a monster, that's going to be even better. SMGs, 5% versus minors, nothing too crazy, but that magazine increase is nice. Something like Teraba with Peacekeepers could go really, really hard. Also Manticore and Risk Runner. Trace rifles, 20% versus minors. I wonder if we'll get like anti-barrier trace this season or something. But anyways, that is a good buff. They did kind of need that, in my opinion, especially the legendary ones. That's another thing. What's it called? Cold Heart makes ionic traces. 20% versus minors, plus it's an exotic trace rifle. That's going to pair perfectly with Geomags. If you just pair those two things together, you're going to be getting your super like crazy. So yeah, watch out for Cold Heart with Geomags. And then Linear Fusions, they did need this buff, so 10% versus all combatants is really, really good. Here's the Glaive stuff. We'll just kind of cover it in full. Glaives have historically been a niche weapon. Maybe I won't cover it totally in full. Basically, they're making them easier to use. So with these changes, the intent is that glaives may become more agile and need to reload less often, are effective at longer ranges, and more forgiving and more impactful when completing their full melee combo. So this is the big thing. It was always the best. I did a little glaive guide a few months ago. It was best to hold block and do your melee because it would give you better DPS and therefore total damage as well, because the full combo was just slower. The 1-2-3 hit was slower than quick 1-2s, 1-2s, basically. So they've significantly increased aim assist, aim magnetism, and damage fall-off ranges. That's really nice. Improved glaive projectile hit registration. That's awesome. Increase the baseline effects at all stat values for handling speeds, including shield ready speed and draw and stow speed. So that's really good because sometimes you want to whip out your glaive and just throw up the shield really quickly, and sometimes it's a little too slow and clunky to keep you alive. So that's a good change. Increased magazine size is huge, again, especially for rake angle, because chill clip is kind of what you want on that. So now that they'll have an increased magazine size, you'll get more chill clip shots. Projectile speed, reload speed. Reload speed's horrible on these things, so that's nice. Final hit of the melee combo deals double damage. So I'm going to make some glaive builds. Again, I was waiting because they teased these glaive buffs a long time ago. So I wanted to read what exactly was changing before I made those builds. This hit also inflicts much more flinch on PvE combatants. So Winterbite already deals a shit ton of damage from its melee, and now its final hit is going to be doing double damage. I'm able to one cycle GM Champ solo with Winterbite, so this is just going to be an insane amount of damage with something like Worm Gods or Syntheseps, Triton Vice, Winter's Guile. So anyways, that's big. What they didn't talk about here was Glaive melees don't have like any functionality with things like knockout or basically like any subclass verb synergy or anything like that. They can't really like trigger keywords and things like that. Hands-on, you can't make orbs from your Glaive melees, stuff like that. They didn't mention any of that here. So again, that was a big reason I was waiting on making those videos, was because I thought that type of stuff was going to come, which would really fundamentally change how you can build around glaives. But basically, they're just getting a damage increase and an ease of use increase, which is still great. Glaives are already goated, but yeah, nothing said about any like subclass synergy. Aggressive frame fusions, basically Coriolis Force is the only one. It sounds like it might be sort of similar to Bastion now. I don't really know, didn't really understand this one. Also some stuff about range, making you able to heal your allies from a greater distance away. Nothing too crazy. Rocket-assisted sidearms, they did acknowledge that they shipped particularly potent. Yes, they did. They've been a staple of double special loadouts pretty much since they came out. They're incredibly versatile. With these changes, ammo-efficient option clearing for minor, major, and champion-tiered targets with direct hits without also being great at killing everything nearby the primary target. So basically, they decreased detonation damage. So basically, they're going to deal less damage in an area, if I'm reading that correctly. Increased impact damage by 100%. That sounds like a lot. That's double damage. So are they now hitting harder? It's sort of what it sounds like to me. So they're going to be hitting harder, but they do have reduced aim assist, reduced magnetism fall off. So maybe this is kind of what mitigates this, is reduced damage by 30% versus boss, vehicle, and mini-boss targets. But if that PvE impact damage is up 100%, they might be dealing more. Maybe I'm misreading this. Let me know down in the comments. But either way, this almost seems like a buff. Buried Bloodlines, body shot damage is unaffected. Critical hit damage is buffed by 8%. So they should remain, I'm just going to read this again, a viable ammo efficient. So they are trying to reduce the splash damage so that they're less good for general ad clear. But yeah, it seems like they might be hitting harder on single targets. And they're already part of like a parasite damage rotation as well. That's pretty decent. The range stat is getting changed to something more appropriate. Lorentz Driver, basically you're getting ammo back when you pick up the Lagrangian sight tags, the bounty tags. This is crazy. Triggering Lagrangian sight by picking up a bounty tag adds 6 ammo to the mag the first time you trigger it. It returns to adding 1 more ammo per tag on extensions while the buff remains active. And then picking up a bounty tag grants 1 ammo to the mag. So this is very interesting. I'm also wondering, that's a couple linear fusion mentions. Those might be on the artifact as well. They did give us that Dawning Mistral Lift, the Void linear fusion. So yeah, also just something I'm thinking they might throw in there is a linear fusion or fusion rifle artifact mod. But yeah, really nice change for Lorentz Driver. It hasn't been used since the season we had Particle Deconstruction. Not used seriously anyways in any kind of end game PvE. So that's a nice change. Delicate Tomb. This weapon is hot ass. I took it into a solo GM a while ago and was disgusted by how weak it was in PvE. So increase the PvE damage bonus on the Tempest Cascade shot from 30 to 100%. It absolutely needed that. Maybe it's good in low tier content, because some people do have a boner for this weapon, but I just thought it was horrible. It does make ionic traces, so again, that could be a nice pairing with Geomags, and then remove the timer from Tempest Cascade. So this did need that big buff. Darcy, I'm already a Darcy lover, and unfortunately, this does not much for me as a solo player, but it is a really nice buff for Darcy. It's basically becoming the Galahorn of sniper rifles. So hits with personal assistant active grant you and nearby allies improved overall weapon performance and precision damage with non-exotic sniper rifles. Keyword non-exotic. So it's not going to buff Whisper of the Worm. or Cloud Strike. Improves, I just mentioned those two because they're kind of the best DPS snipers. Improves recoil, flinch, target acquisition, handling, and precision damage, which is crazy. Stacks up to 5 times. Darcy also gets this buff itself. Darcy user also gets plus 15% damage after granting 5 stacks to a teammate. So it says it gets the buff itself, but I feel like that's only if you activate it for your teammates. So 15% damage bonus is huge because that's likely going to stack with things like Radiant and weapon surges and stuff. So that's just free damage. But it says giving it to a teammate. So I have used this in solo GMs before. I don't think you're going to get it if you're solo, but still really nice change. Really cool what they've done there. I like it. The class exotic... What am I trying to say? The class specific exotic glaives for Hunter, Titan, and Warlock. Edge of Concurrence, effects of jolting feedback trait added to intrinsic perk. So basically it would shoot that chain lightning. Now that's going to be like jolting feedback. So that's very cool. Special shot is no longer tied to glaive energy. You just need 6 weapon hits. And these can be melee hits as well. So this is awesome. These have been dead on arrival since Witch Queen. So 3 years, no one has used these. And now they're actually going to be worth using, especially with the other glaive changes that have been talked about. So yeah, Edge of Concurrence was probably the best one, and now it gets jolting feedback, which is awesome. Edge of Action, effects of destabilizing rounds, so that's really nice. And then Edge of Intent, you get Incandescent, you get a Cure Pulse, and then the Healing Turret does the same thing. Speaker Sight had changed to it, where it will only heal allies that are damaged. Centrifuge, basically it's just getting a mag increasing perk. This is really cool. Dead Messenger, Hard Light, and Borealis. Basically, they're not getting the stat bonuses anymore. Now, grants a 30% damage buff to this weapon for 10 seconds when you apply or receive an elemental keyword that matches the currently selected damage type of this weapon. So let's see, we've got, just say Hard Light. So say you've got an incandescent machine gun or just whatever. You have a Scorch based build and you're applying a bunch of Scorch. Now Hard Light's going to get a 30% damage increase. And again, anytime these are like weapon damage perks, like the Darcy one or Kill Clip or anything, those all stack. Bait and Switch, Frenzy, those all stack with Surges and Radiant. So 30% is big, especially for Dead Messenger. Dead Messenger is a really fun weapon, but it's kind of niche. But it became craftable. You can craft it with Demolitionist. So you could chuck out a solar grenade and apply a ton of Scorch. And then Dead Messenger is going to hit for 30% more. So just some really cool synergy there. I really like it. Same with like Jolt grenades. Prismatic Warlock, you can get a ton of Storm Jolt grenades, or Prismatic Titan even with the Pulse grenades. You hit them, now they're all jolted. Now you shoot Dead Messenger. You're just going to have a really good ad clear with this thing. And it kind of is nice for Borealis as well, because Borealis hasn't been used in literal years, especially since Match Game went away. Telesto, very cool changes. Telesto's already strong. Last year, I put Nezarec Sin on with Telesto in OG Onslaught, and it was cooking, and now it's getting big buffs. So now only refills Telesto's ammo from reserves instead of Telesto and your kinetic slot weapon. Now triggers with any Void Final Blow. So it's going to be really good with Nezarec Sin because you get lots of Void Final Blows if you're built into it, which you should be. Final Blow requirements increased from 2 to 3. However, Telesto Final Blows count double. In other words, will trigger from 2 Telesto Final Blows, 1 Telesto Final Blow, and 1 other Void Final Blow, or 3 other Void Final Blows. So something like Controverse Hold, you chuck out 1 grenade, you get 3 grenade kills, and say you have the Destabilizing Rounds perk on. I can't remember what that fragment's called. But anyways, then you shoot Telesto. It's applying volatile, and you're triggering the perk, and then multi-kill timer increased 2 to 4 seconds. And then the catalyst, new perk Harbinger Seethe. After 3 activations of Harbinger's Pulse, special reload the weapon to cause a rain of Telesto projectiles on your next direct hit, which is crazy. So Telesto is going to be really, really fun if you build into it. Vex Caliber, with the buffs last season avoid Overshield's effectiveness, it seemed like the weapon could use a few tweaks to take maximum advantage and emphasize the Paladin Protector fantasy with its area Overshield. So Vex Caliber is legitimately one of the best special weapons in the game, but again, glaives are niche. We've made it easier to generate guard energy in PvE when wading through enemies and quicker to apply Overshield to your allies. As weapon made to hunt and kill the Vex, we figured this was also a good opportunity to reinforce this theme as well. So triggering Perpetual Loophole by scoring a melee kill while your Overshield is active now also gives your Glaive energy to full. So that's crazy. All you need is a bit of Void Overshield, which this thing can give you that super easily. You get a melee kill, now your Glaive energy is full, which is going to give you more Void Overshield, so then you can just keep slaying out with the melee, and yeah, basically it just is a never-ending Void Overshield, and Void Overshield is now 70% damage resistance. It's very, very strong in PvE now. Slightly increased Void Overshield trickle on rate to nearby allies. So it did go up pretty slow when you were holding guard, so now it's just going to go up a little faster, the Void Overshield. And then increase the potency of Vex Caliber's secret innate advantage against the Vex. So basically Malfeasance gets 25% extra damage to Taken, where Vex Caliber would only get 10. Now it's going to be 25%. And then Vex Caliber now briefly disorients non-boss Vex with its melee attack. So Vex Caliber was already really strong, and now it's stronger between the glaive changes and then also the specific changes to this weapon. So basically you're a walking tank if you ever use Vex Caliber. Wardcliff Coil is a classic weapon that is easy to use. Basically, new intrinsic effect grants 1 stack of bolt charge to all nearby allies for every 2 rockets fired. I don't think this moves the needle at all on Wardcliff, but hey, nice addition. Queenbreaker, this is really cool. Basically, you can swap between the sights now while in combat, while in an activity, where before you had to do it from your menu. So that's really nice. I've soloed a GM with Queenbreaker actually a few times, and it would be nice to be able to swap in the activity. So now you can, and they're basically changing it so the combat sights now alters the weapon to fire a 3-round burst at a charge time of 533, but sustained damage on a target decreases the charge time to 300. So basically, this is going to be your DPS version, and then Marksman, it got an increase to its blind chaining to 10 meters, which is actually really, really good. So this can blind for utility, and then you can swap to this for boss damage. So really, really good changes to Queenbreaker. That's actually super unreal. I've always been a bit of a Queenbreaker fan. Shout out Pat. Queenbreaker meta, finally. But yeah, really like this change. Colony, same thing. Felt like hot ass, just like that Arc Fusion rifle I talked about earlier. I can't even remember the name because I just think that weapon sucks so much. Delicate Tomb. I did try out the Colony after the changes. It felt ass, so they increased detonation damage by 40%, probably what it needed. This puts its damage per shot a little above legendary drum grenade launchers, so yeah, it definitely needed that. It still felt terrible, so now it might actually be usable in endgame PvE. Quicksilver Storm, I made my exotic primary weapon tier list and it wasn't even on there, and people were saying that the nerf was too heavy-handed, which I agreed, because they increased the shots to trigger a rocket and they decrease the damage of the grenade. So now the damage to the grenade is still decreased, but that's fine because now they're reducing the shots required to trigger a rocket by 17%. That was actually the worst part of the change because it just felt so annoying and shitty to use now because it stacked up rockets so slowly. So this is a great change. It's still not going to chunk champions like it used to because the grenades aren't going to hit as hard. And that's where they needed to nerf it the first time. They didn't need to do this, so good on them for learning. Legend of Acreus, you talk about a weapon that didn't need a buff. This thing is a monster, but now they've reduced the spread angle by 33%, which is massive because this thing is a beast, but it does miss a lot of shots. You used to have to be really accurate if you wanted optimal DPS with it, unless you were fighting like a big giant ogre or like big boss targets. And then increase max projectile range from 12 to 18 meters. Also a wonderful change because you did have to play very in your face with this weapon. And if you were shooting out of its range, you basically did like no damage. So like I said, it didn't need a buff. But these are really nice quality of life changes that I'm really, really happy about because it deserves them. Fourth Horseman, this is kind of cool. Reduce the rate of fire slightly to give more control over wasting shots. So it's going to have a little less DPS now. Loads ammo from reserves to the magazine per kill. So this thing still needs a reserve bump in my opinion because it does chew through ammo like crazy, but it's kind of cool how you would be able to, as long as you're getting kills, you could dump like all 18 shots as long as you're getting kills because it's just going to keep reloading. Lord of Wolves, release the wolves now triggers on hipfire instead of special reload. That's very, very nice in my opinion. Makes it much more fluid to use. Greatly increased damage and rate of fire. Reduced accuracy and range. So basically they said they took inspiration from Choir of One and how it's got kind of that dual functionality built in, really nice and easy to use. Now this does as well. And then they increased the range and reduced the base damage, removed accuracy penalties from standard fired mode, and then the catalyst, reload speed, and stability boosts are now built in. When Release of Wolves is active, dealing damage to targets scorches them, so that's cool. And then when ADS, defeating targets spread scorch to nearby allies. Cloud Strike is getting some bolt charge functionality. I didn't totally understand this one, but basically rapid precision hits creates a lightning storm and grants a stack of bolt charge. So now you're just getting bolt charge, I guess. And then precision final blows generate a lightning bolt at the target and grants a moderate amount of bolt charge. So basically, I guess it just gives bolt charge. Pretty simple. And then Thunderlord, final blows with this weapon generate lightning strike from above. Lightning strikes grant a stack of bolt charge. So basically these both now give bolt charge. So just a little bit of additional functionality. Destabilizing rounds, I mentioned this earlier, has been a bit behind. I think we could all agree with that. We've given it a bit of love. So now grants volatile rounds for 2 seconds if any targets are hit by the volatile burst. So that's really nice because it could only spread volatile. It could never directly apply it. Now it can apply it. I don't know though, for those 2 seconds, I wonder if you have anti-barrier. It would be very niche, but like actual destabilizing rounds, or sorry, that's the perk. What are they called? Anyways, volatile rounds, I should say. Volatile rounds can pierce barrier champions, so now grants volatile rounds. So you might have 2 seconds of anti-barrier functionality with destabilizing rounds now. Reduced internal cooldown from 4 seconds to 1.5. So now you can also trigger destabilizing much, much more frequently. So that's really nice. They're adding full court to area denial GLs, which is actually pretty good. Ambitious Assassin, remove both multi-kill and reload timers. That's good because this is a dead old perk. So good change there. Flash counter, basically taking damage after guarding emits a disorienting blast. No longer requires a timed input or melee to trigger. That's great. Deals moderate damage in a large cone in front of you, disorienting combatants. Again, an old sword perk that no one really ever uses. I did test it way back in the day after Lightfall released to see if it could stun champions, and it couldn't. Even though it applied weaken and slow. Maybe it could. I can't remember. I'd have to go watch the videos. But I do remember testing it. These are some new weapons that we're getting. This thing is a Void rocket-assisted sidearm, so definitely get that because that's the only one you're missing. You got Solar, you got Arc, you got Strand, you got Stasis. So finally we're getting one of these. Strategist looks nice on it. Well-rounded's decent. Shoot to loot is always good. That's probably what people are going to go for. One for all is nice on these things. I love Frenzy. So shoot to loot Frenzy, shoot to loot one for all is what I would like. Or Adrenaline Junkie. Palindrome doesn't sound like it's coming back as good as it used to be, but maybe these redacted perks are, at least for PvP. Explosive Payload's nice. Desperate Measures, Master of Arms are pretty decent. Strand Rocket Launcher, it doesn't have Bait and Switch, but or does it have Envious Arsenal? Anyway, this one kind of looks trash. Gambit is getting an Arc Glaive with Volt Shot, which is kind of interesting. This thing is going to be a monster because it's a primary that can get Withering Gaze. The Trials Hand Cannon, Exalted Truth, and this one have Withering Gaze. Withering Gaze on a primary is insane. So yeah, definitely worth getting. And then that's it. I've yapped on for like 35 minutes. So I'm probably just going to call it there. I just wanted to give my thoughts. I was going to say give a quick breakdown, but that wasn't very quick. You're probably quicker to read it on your own. But yeah, if you liked the video, like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. As I mentioned, if you're interested in the game to give thing, I don't know what happened there. But if you're interested in Game to Give, check out the description and get yourself some cool emblems. And I will catch you in the next one. Take care.